Welcome to Confessions Shadow Secrets. Today's story is titled I've Been Talking to Someone in the Night. At first it was weird, but now I'm genuinely horrified. Everything started 2 months ago. In January, I moved to a new house in Port Arthur. I had recently divorced from my husband after a 6-year marriage, and I wanted to live somewhere I could be free. I also brought with me my golden retriever Milo. At that time he was almost 2 years old. When I first saw the house, I was instantly amazed. It was beautiful. The garden was big, filled with green grass. Especially Milo was happy, and I immediately contacted the landlord and told him it was sold. The first night in my new house was perfect. When I lay on my bed, it felt like euphoria was bubbling inside my body. I felt so cozy, safe, and free in my covers, all at the same time. Those were the only nights I felt safe though. On the 4th night, I woke up to some strange growling sounds. It sounded like a baby kitten that was being beaten to death combined with some gurgling and thuds. I woke up and checked the clock. It was 3:55. Milo was next to me in bed, and he was shivering and whimpering, which was strange, because he had never acted like this before. There was no reason he should have acted this way. Oh boy, I was so wrong, because that was when I started actually hearing the growling sounds. It felt like it was coming from the room next to me. Yet I couldn't build up the courage to stand up and walk over there. I decided that the growling sounds could be the neighbors, and calmed myself down to sleep again. At almost 5, the growling sounds finally stopped. This continued for almost a month, when one night, something scary happened. I woke up to thudding sounds, and this time there was no growling. I looked beside me for Milo, but he wasn't there. In fact, the spot next to me was completely empty but warm, which meant that Milo was here, but had just left. Milo! I yelled repeatedly. I finally got out of bed and stood up. I slowly walked down the corridor, and it was completely pitch black. On my 4th step, I saw a pair of yellow eyes in the dark. It felt like it was the only source of light, and it illuminated the dark room. I was so scared that I couldn't even scream. I had no idea what I was supposed to do at the moment. Milo, is that you? I reached out slowly, and hoped that I would touch that furry, cute little dog that he was. Then, another pair of yellow eyes appeared in the dark. This time I actually screamed. I ran to my room, gasping for air, and lo and behold, Milo was sitting at the door of my room. But his hair was all soaking wet, and he was again shivering vigorously. I slammed the door behind me. My worries of the yellow eyes started to fade. All I worried about right now was Milo, and what happened to him. Milo! I exclaimed, scared. I found out his whole body was covered in blood. It was like someone had grabbed him and dunked him in a pot of blood, let him stand in the cold rain while some of it washed off, then told him to come back to me. Milo was still whining and whimpering, possibly from the cold, so I decided to wash him up. When I was washing him, I could feel something's presence looming over me. When I was bathing him, I felt someone watching. When I was combing his fur, I felt someone watching. When I dried him, I felt someone watching. Finally, when I was done with Milo, it was dawn. I hadn't gotten a good night's sleep, so I went straight to bed again. When I woke up, it was in the middle of the night again. Somehow, I had slept from dawn to the next night. Was this possible? I wasn't a very deep sleeper, and then it hit me. What if I hadn't slept for so long? In fact, Milo's incident was just a dream. I had always had crazy dreams, but this dream felt too realistic to believe. I looked to the spot beside me on my bed, and there Milo was, all cozied up and sleeping. I couldn't understand anything that was happening to me. I felt scared and unsafe. At this point, I just fell asleep again. This time, I woke up during the afternoon. I went out of bed to make a coffee for myself, and Milo came along with me. Everything seemed great. Only the nighttime was when weird things happens. I was scrolling on Instagram when I found this app that allows you to track your sleep and record anything that you say or do in the middle of the night. That night, I set the app up after having dinner. I ate a fulfilling meal of McDonald's and went straight to bed after. I placed my phone in the bedside table and went to sleep. That night, I slept soundly, my first time in a month. When I woke up, it was morning, and I was feeling as happy as a goose. I checked my sleep tracker. I had slept for 8 hours straight, and it said, "Well done" on the app. I played the recordings that was recorded during the night. What it recorded shocked me. In the middle of the night, I could hear sounds of muffled rustling, like someone was looking through my drawers. That was shocking, but not the scariest part. The scariest part was, I heard my own voice asking, "What are you doing?" And a deep male voice that said, "Nothing." After that short conversation, the rustling disappeared, and everything was silent. How was this possible? I lived in the house by myself and I was sure of it. I could recognize my own voice, although I do not recall saying anything in the middle of the night. And who was that deep male voice? Could my ex have sneaked in? He did not know any details related to my address, so I was unsure of that. The following night, Weird Conversations was recorded again. I heard rustling again from the recordings, then my voice saying, "Go away please," and a deep male voice again saying, "Why?" After that it was silent again. Today, I have moved away from the house because of my frightening encounters with these weird experiences. I no longer have sleeping problems, and I don't see or hear voices in the dark anymore. Although I am probably safe now, I still am very curious. Who or what was haunting me in the other house? Why? I will never forget my experience in the other house. And one day, I will find you, the person who haunted me.
The Yindi story 2 is titled My Son Keeps Drawing a Man We've Never Met. I think he's real. My son keeps drawing a man we've never met. I think he's real. My son, Alex, has always loved drawing. Crayons, markers, whatever he could get his little hands on. At first, it was the usual stuff. Dogs, stick figure family portraits, the occasional scribble that only he understood. But last month, his drawings changed. It started with a man, a tall figure with no hair, hollow eyes, and a stretched, too wide smile. The first time he showed it to me, I felt uneasy. "Who's this, buddy?" I asked, keeping my tone light. Alex grinned. "That's Mr. Threads." The name made my stomach twist. "Where did you hear that name?" He told me. Alex said simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "He stands in my doorway at night." I almost dropped the paper. At first, I chalked it up to a child's imagination. Kids invent imaginary friends all the time, right? But the drawings didn't stop. They got worse. Every day, Alex brought me a new picture of Mr. Threads. The same elongated smile, the same hollow eyes, and every time Mr. Threads got closer, one drawing showed him at the end of the hallway, another in the living room, then standing behind me. The night I found a picture of Mr. Threads standing next to Alex's bed, I didn't sleep. Last night, I heard something. It was past midnight, and I was getting a glass of water when I heard Alex talking in his room. Soft, hushed whispers. I pressed my ear to the door. "But you don't have to be mad," Alex was saying. "I told her about you. She believes me now." A long silence. Then, in the quietest voice I have ever heard my son use, "Okay, I'll tell her." I burst through the door. Alex was sitting up in bed, staring at the open closet. "Who were you talking to?" I demanded. He blinked, like I had just woken him up. "Mr. Threads says you should sleep with the door open tonight." My stomach dropped. "Why?" Alex's lower lip trembled. "So he can come in." I slept with the door locked. This morning, Alex wouldn't look at me. He just kept scribbling furiously, his crayon scratching against the paper. When I finally coaxed it out of his hands, my breath caught in my throat. It was me, sleeping, and behind me, looming over the bed, Mr. Threads. I grabbed my son's shoulders. "Alex, tell me the truth. Have you actually seen him?" He didn't speak, just gave a tiny, reluctant nod. His little hands gripped the fabric of his pajama pants, and he bit his lower lip. I tried to steady my breathing. Every night, he whispered. I thought I might be sick. "What does he do?" Alex hesitated, then pressed his hands over his eyes. "He watches, but he doesn't have eyes, so sometimes he borrows them." A sharp chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean, borrows them?" Alex shuddered. "Sometimes I wake up and everything is blurry, and my eyes hurt." His voice wavered. "That's when I know he's using them." My hands started shaking. I ran to the bathroom, flipping the light switch, and studied my son's face. His pupils were dilated, like he'd been staring into pure darkness for hours. I turned his head gently to the side, checking under his eyes. Dark circles, so deep they looked bruised. "We're leaving," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. That night, I kept every light on in the house. I let Alex sleep in my bed, keeping him tucked close to me, his small fingers gripping my sleeve like he was afraid I'd disappear if he let go. I didn't blame him. I felt the same way. Sleep didn't come easy. Every shadow in the room felt like it was stretching toward us, reaching. I kept reminding myself that it was just in my head, just my own paranoia turning shapes into monsters. Then, at 3:07 a.m., Alex gasped awake. I bolted upright. "What is it?" He trembled violently, clutching at his face. "Mom, my eyes. I can't see." I grabbed his shoulders. It's okay, I'm here. You're safe." But even as I said it, I saw the shift in the room. The light flickered, just once, then again, and the temperature dropped. I turned slowly toward the bedroom door. It was open. A long shadow stretched across the floor. Alex sobbed into my chest, his tiny fingers curling into fists. "He's here," he whimpered. I didn't look. I couldn't. Instead, I pulled Alex into my arms, stood up, and backed toward the farthest corner of the room. My heart slammed against my ribs, every instinct screaming at me to run, but I didn't know where to go. Then, the whisper came. "You see me now." I snapped my eyes shut. It was right there. I could feel it. A presence looming over us, stretching, growing, filling the room with something cold and unnatural. My breath came in shallow, rapid gasps. I felt something graze my cheek. I ran. I don't remember getting to the car. I barely remember buckling Alex in, my hands fumbling as I tried to still my shaking fingers. All I remember is driving, tearing down the street at 3:15 in the morning, refusing to look in the rearview mirror. Alex sobbed quietly in the back seat. "He knows where we're going." I didn't respond. I just kept driving. That was 3 days ago. We're at my sister's house now, staying in her guest room. Alex hasn't drawn anything since we left. He still wakes up in the middle of the night, though, gasping, clutching at his face, shaking uncontrollably. I don't know what to do. I don't know if running was enough. Because last night, I woke up to Alex standing by the window, his hands pressed to the glass. "He's outside," he whispered. "He wants to come in." And this morning, I found a drawing crumpled under his pillow, a sketch of my sister's house, with Mr. Threads standing at the front door. The Yandy Story 3 is titled What Was That Thing? A long time ago I used to be a park ranger for a national park. Well, because of this story I have quit, and I do not want to go to a national park again. This park in particular, national park, had a cabin for me to stay in. I remember it being pretty homey and cozy. So after my shift for teaching, I was just hanging out in my cabin. This particular night, I was wondering if we knew so much about the area as we thought we did. If there was something out there that wasn't discovered. Maybe we just hadn't found it, or it had wanted to stay hidden, hiding away from humans and any other civilization. Would they be smart enough to recognize to avoid us? If so, why were they avoiding humans? What I was thinking of was a far stretch to just people not finding out about another subspecies. But this day someone had came up to me. They looked frightened about something. Something they had seen, or perhaps something they had heard. They played an audio clip of a high-pitched maniacal screaming, sounded like a woman screaming out for help, but also sounded animal. Like on the bridge of being human and not. The one who played the audio clip asked what animal could have made the noise. I said I didn't know, and that it was nothing like I had heard before. The person was confused, and so was I. That noise is what made me wonder if there were other things that we don't know of. Although right now my thinking was cut short. I could hear almost the exact same screaming noise coming out from the woods. This time it didn't just sound like an animal, it was a blood-curdling scream. Loud enough it made my skull shake inside of my head. Then in the corner of my eye, through the glass sliding door, I see an animal run past the door. Or I think it was an animal. It was more humanoid, like it had a humanish body but was bent down on all fours, running around like whoever it was thought they were an actual wild animal. I grabbed my flashlight to see what it was. I don't know what made me though. Perhaps it was my curiosity or my ignorance for what I would soon see. I stepped out of the sliding glass door, shining my light around, trying to see what was there. I saw shaking in the bushes. I stepped closer, although not willing to get any closer to whatever the thing in the bushes was in case it was dangerous. I heard a ticking sound. It sounded like bones clattering. And there I saw the animal. Its head was the skull of a deer. Its skin had been completely stripped from the deer, but somehow it still survived. It still was alive. Its jaw as it stared at me with no eyes in their eye sockets, but something deep into where the eyes should be there was a white light still glittering. Its body ascending out of the bushes as it stood up on its hind legs. It was taller than me. It looked like it was trying to mimic me. I tried to make myself look bigger, but this animal showed no fear of me. Its jaw shook as it laid straight down. Out of the abyss that seemed to inhabit its mouth came out a long dark red tongue that came out its mouth. It stared at me like a dog as it ever so slowly inched closer to me. I could sense the fear within me. As it stared dead-eyed at me, its mouth hung open, and its tongue stuck out like a dog. Fuck it, I thought. I wasn't going to get ripped to pieces by whatever I was staring at. I swiftly turned around, confusing the beast, as I rushed as fast as I could to the cabin. I let out a sigh of relief, realizing that I had left the door open. I ran as fast as I could, but it was like there were dark shadows behind me chasing me, whispering out to me, and grabbing out to get me. Everything felt in slow motion as I ran. I could still feel the sickening bone-clanking noises that this horrifying humanoid deer thing was making. Every second the sound happened again. Every second I felt that same horrible noise in my ears. It made me want to explode inside, to wish that I could wake up and everything, including the monster, wasn't real. I could feel my hair fly around as I ran as fast as I could. Adrenaline rushed through my veins at the very moment, just reaching out for the safe haven that would be inside the cabin, with nothing like that inside it, separating me from the very horrors that I was face to face with. I stepped foot through the sliding glass doors, and I slammed it on the thing. It did not try to open the door. Instead, it only stared at me with its hanging jaw. It came closer to the door, and then it began to lick the door. Again and again. The window was completely wet, and I could not see through it anymore. And then I heard it slowly walk away into the horizon far away from me, I hope. And I never see anything like it again. Now I have no idea what I saw then. But if anyone has any idea of what it could have been or have any reasonable answer to this, please let me know. Because I don't know if that thing somehow escaped the depths of hell into our world, I would believe it. And it had this terrible smell of rotting flesh. It looked dead, like a body that had been suddenly reanimated. The next day I quit my job as a park ranger, and I will never come back again. The end. Please don't forget subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment your theories.